Keir Starmer just erupted in rage after a shocking twist in British politics. The King himself has taken a step that no one saw coming, a move that looks like he's handing real power, influence and legitimacy straight to Nigel Farage. What we are witnessing isn't just another headline or another scandal in Westminster. This is a turning point that could reshape the entire future of the United Kingdom. It all started quietly, almost like a whisper in the halls of Buckingham Palace. But the news has now exploded across the political landscape. King Charles has been meeting with Nigel Farage, not just for a polite chat, but for deep discussions about Britain's future, foreign policy, and the growing unrest in the country. For many, this feels like the monarch, breaking decades of royal tradition, stepping into the storm of politics in a way that leaves Labour scrambling for survival. And no one has been more shaken than Keir Starmer. Starmer, who only months ago believed he was gliding smoothly toward Downing Street, is now watching his campaign unravel in real time. His anger, according to multiple insiders, is reaching a boiling point. Furious calls with advisors, outbursts behind closed doors. Even his closest allies admit privately that the Labour leader feels betrayed not just by the King, but by the British people, who seem to be drifting away from him at lightning speed. Why? Because Reform UK, once dismissed as a sideshow, is now front and centre. Farage has become the lightning rod for a nation that feels ignored, squeezed, and lied to by the same political class that promised change and delivered nothing. The King's sudden interest in Farage's ideas, his direct decision to seek his thoughts before major speeches abroad, has given Farage something priceless: royal credibility. It's like a crown jewel in politics, and Starmer knows it. The numbers tell the story. Labour is crumbling in the polls, sliding down into the low 20s. Reform UK is smashing through ceilings, now sitting comfortably above 30%. That's not just a swing, that's an earthquake. And as shocking as it sounds, it means millions of voters who once placed their hopes in Labour are now putting their trust in Nigel Farage. They see him as authentic, plain-spoken, and unafraid to challenge the global elites who they blame for Britain's economic struggles and border chaos. For Starmer, the optics couldn't be worse. Imagine trying to run a campaign built on the idea that you're the safe pair of hands, only to have the King of England turn his gaze toward your rival. Charles's subtle but powerful nod to Farage has left Labour looking irrelevant, weak, and out of touch. Starmer's frustration is not just about polling. It's about power slipping through his fingers while his opponent gains momentum from the highest office in the land. Inside Westminster, the reaction has been nothing short of panic. Labour MPs are whispering about leadership cracks, journalists are reporting on internal disputes, and voters are questioning whether Starmer has what it takes to lead. And as the pressure mounts, his public appearances are turning into disasters. Just recently, his attempt to calm the chaos ended in humiliation as he stumbled through interviews, unable to explain why ordinary people should still trust Labour. But Farage is not wasting a single moment. Every appearance, every rally, every interview now feels supercharged with new authority. He's no longer seen as the outsider throwing stones at the establishment. He's the man the King is willing to listen to. And that one fact is rattling Britain's entire political system to its core. What's unfolding now is more than just a clash between two politicians. It's a full-blown collision between the old political order and a rising force that refuses to play by Westminster's traditional rules. The Labour Party thought they could sideline Farage. They thought they could laugh him off as a populist with no future. But the King's subtle blessing has flipped the board upside down. Starmer's rage is a sign of just how serious this has become. He knows this isn't temporary. He knows this isn't a passing headline. The monarch's choice to acknowledge Farage has set into motion a new chapter in British politics, one where Labour risks being permanently sidelined while reform surges ahead. And if Starmer's private fury is any indication, he's running out of strategies, out of allies, and out of time. The fallout from this royal shake-up is spreading faster than anyone in Labour headquarters can handle. What was once dismissed as background noise has now become the dominant story across Britain. Newspapers, broadcasters, and online outlets are all locked in on one explosive question. Why would the King turn to Nigel Farage at this moment, and what does it mean for the future of the country? For Starmer, the question itself is devastating, because every time it's asked, it shines a spotlight on Labour's weakness and Farage's sudden rise to political stardom. The image of a furious Starmer pacing in private meetings, snapping at advisors, and slamming his fist on the table has become symbolic of a party on the verge of collapse. Even Labour loyalists admit that this looks like a nightmare scenario. Part of what makes this so powerful is the symbolism. In Britain, the monarchy is more than just pageantry. It's a deep cultural anchor. For centuries, kings and queens have shaped national identity, often in quiet but unmistakable ways. When Charles reaches out to Nigel Farage, it's not just a conversation. It's a signal, a ripple that turns into a wave. The king doesn't need to give speeches full of endorsements. Just the act of engaging Farage seriously is enough to legitimise him in the eyes of millions. And at a time when trust in politicians is collapsing, the king's gesture carries even more weight. The public is watching, and they're interpreting it as a quiet but clear message. Farage matters. This is why Starmer is erupting. He knows that politics is perception, and perception is reality. Once the people begin to see Farage as a man who speaks with authority and even commands respect from the monarch, Labour's carefully scripted lines about responsible leadership fall apart instantly. The comparison is brutal. Starmer comes across as out of touch, bland, and dependent on party machinery, while Farage looks like the bold, independent voice rising above the noise. For a leader who has built his campaign on control and stability, being outshined by a populist he once mocked is more than an embarrassment. It's a collapse of his political brand. And it's not just Starmer feeling the heat. Inside Labour, cracks are widening by the day. MPs are panicking, local candidates are distancing themselves, and whispers of an internal revolt are echoing through Westminster. Labour staffers, once confident of a smooth victory, are now frantically rewriting strategies, desperate to stop the bleeding. Yet the more they attack Farage, the stronger he seems to become. Every insult, every dismissal, every attempt to paint him as a dangerous outsider only fuels his connection with ordinary voters who see him as the one man brave enough to challenge the system. Meanwhile, Reform UK is seizing the moment with ruthless precision. Their rallies are bigger, their messages sharper, and their confidence unshakable. They are no longer the fringe outsiders. They are the storm battering against the gates of the establishment. The King's subtle approval has acted like rocket fuel, propelling Reform UK to heights that once seemed impossible. Starmer's fear, and the fear of the entire Labour leadership, is that this momentum may now be unstoppable. The public mood is shifting dramatically. In working-class towns, in middle-class suburbs, even in places once considered Labour heartlands, people are talking about Farage as if he is the only politician left who dares to speak honestly. They're tired of broken promises, rising taxes, and endless scandals. They're tired of being ignored while elites in Westminster play their games. And now, with the monarch's symbolic nod, many believe that backing Farage is not just an act of protest, it's an act of hope. For Labour, the nightmare is that this isn't just a temporary spike. This could be the beginning of a fundamental realignment in British politics. The Conservatives are weak, Labour is crumbling, and Reform UK is filling the vacuum. The King's involvement has accelerated what was already happening, a historic shift away from the old two-party system and toward a new force that claims to represent the people directly. That's why Starmer's eruption matters so much. His fury is the fury of a man who can see the ground shifting beneath him but cannot stop it. Legal experts and constitutional scholars are already debating what this means. They're asking if the monarchy has crossed an invisible line, if Charles is taking risks that could backfire, or if this is simply the king doing what he has always done, shaping public opinion quietly from the shadows. But while they debate the theory, the political reality is clear. Nigel Farage has been elevated in a way that no campaign, no slogan, and no manifesto could have achieved on its own. The king's hand has tipped the balance, and British politics may never look the same again. What comes next could be the most volatile period in